You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
I got BAFTA. It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file.
That doesn't sound too hard.
This is Making Tracks.
This is the way.
Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
I know these people. They are brutal. Does this look Jedi to you?
That's not how the Force works.
They'll never see it coming.
Count me
You're listening to Making Tracks. I'm your co-host Mark Newbold, and joining me today is a man who's just put great new big bass speakers in the back of his Razor Crest. It's Mark Mulcaster. Mark, how you doing, man? Oh, should I say Mark Mulcaster?
I can't do a good sound where I'm good, man. Just back from Germany. I was out there with Elixir. We played a Keep It True festival on Saturday. I had a fantastic time. The place was absolutely rammed, which was great. The crowd was awesome. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm also off to Germany. I'm going next month to Power of the Force Con. Germany's a great place to go, isn't it?
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. And enjoying Shadow Lord. Obviously, our latest episode of Reaction Chat came out, and that's going fairly nicely at the moment as well. But we've got loads of news to get through.
Go on, then.
And an interview and some listeners' questions. Andor, it won at the BAFTA TV Craft Awards.
Yay.
It won in the Special Visual and Graphic Effects category. So the awards are split in a way. They're all handed out as one thing, but it's for the visual effects team from ILM, the special effects department, and the Creature Shop. So representatives of all three of those got up on stage to accept their awards. Fantastic that Andor's picking up more awards, because in addition to the BAFTA, it also picked up a Peabody Award at the 86th Peabody Awards in the entertainment category. That really is a big deal. The Peabodys are basically the Pulitzer Prize for radio. Huge win there for Andor. I know we talk about Andor winning awards quite a lot because Andor's got a very nice habit of winning awards, but how do you feel about seeing the show that we enjoyed so much last year, that really did raise the benchmark for Star Wars storytelling, getting over into the mainstream and winning things like BAFTAs and Peabody Awards? It's great to see for Star Wars.
There's a couple of craft BAFTA awards. You know, there's normally one this time of year, but there's normally one in November as well. And the one in November is the one that it's more to do with editing. So it's great that some of these other disciplines are being recognised. But also it's fantastic that Andor is still picking up the prizes for what is still the best made Star Wars we've ever had.
Agreed. We're pretty much a year removed now from the season being in full flow. So we are, I would say, coming towards the end of Andor being up for any more awards. But something that hopefully will be up for some awards is The Mandalorian and Grogu. Mando and Grogu, it's a film, of course, but it was going to be a fourth season of the TV show. But Jon Favreau wanted to make very clear that the fourth season of the TV show isn't the film. He spoke recently and he basically said, you just can't take those scripts and turn them into a movie. There were a lot of characters. It assumed that you'd watch the whole show, and it was teeing up what was happening moving into Ahsoka. It was about Grand Admiral Thrawn and following the larger storyline. This is a completely different medium, so I had to start from scratch, essentially. There were certain things I wanted to pursue, like the idea of Grogu being the Mandalorian's apprentice. As long as you understand the archetypes of this hardened warrior with their vulnerable young apprentice, you'll know these characters well, even if you've never even seen the show. But still, There's a lot of Star Wars in there. You're going to see where things are going, but that doesn't diminish from the experience of watching it as a standalone film. And then at CinemaCon, just separately to that, he said, before the 2023 strike, we were writing a fourth season. And then with the Dodgers, you get a tap on the shoulder in the bullpen. Do you want to pitch in the big game? We've been talking about doing something for the big screen with this for a long time. I thought it was probably going to be some mixing of different media, like something for streaming and then having a theatrical component. And then finally I got asked, would you be open to exploring these characters for the cinema? You have to completely switch hats then. So lots of information in there, and there's even more information on that coming in the final issue of Star Wars Insider with Kathleen Kennedy. But a lot to take in there, Mark.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? Fourth season of Mandalorian, which would have tied in with Ahsoka and possibly had links into other stuff, is not what we're getting with the film. Are you satisfied by that, given there's been a couple of 3 years since season 3 Mando? We don't quite know when Ahsoka's coming out either. So where do you sit with this?
I think it's the right decision. Ultimately, if you're just going to take the scripts from season 4 and it's going to turn off a certain number of the audience for going to the cinema because either they've not seen all 3 seasons or they haven't seen Ahsoka, or they didn't like Ahsoka, then yeah, you're shortchanging yourself. Me and you've talked about this before. Out of everything that has come out since the start of Disney Plus, The Mandalorian is one show that can be episodic and be very standalone. You can have a fully fledged adventure without necessarily needing to know all the exposition and baggage of 3 seasons before. The way that The Mandalorian is kind of set up, it's kind of designed to be able to just drop you in, have a great time in the cinema, have a laugh, and watch some great action set pieces, and then move on. You know, I'm sure this will tie in, and we're kind of getting hints with the final trailer that it's just tying into the wider Star Wars story in respects of like chasing down the ex-Imperials or even like potential saving the galaxy from a future civil war. So I think this makes perfect sense. And also then this kind of means that actually you haven't just thrown the baby out with the bathwater, as it were. And if you want to do a season 4 afterwards, then you can still do that without kind of having to completely go back to the drawing board, as it were, to write a brand new season 4 because you've suddenly spent half of your season 4 storylines on a film.
Couple of things in with that one. One, the episodic nature of The Mandalorian seems a little bit more like, I'll give a comparison point, the old school Star Trek, the TV series, where it's like Adventure of the Week. But then when you got further into the 90s and the shows that run in the 90s, and then you've got stuff like Babylon 5 and the X-Files and other shows of that nature, the whole mythology and the plot line and the ongoing story arcs were more of a thing. So that lends itself more to Andor that we've just talked about, rather than Mando and Grogu. But now you've got a standalone Mandalorian film. You're absolutely right. You can tell one adventure just picking up enough elements from the TV show that you're not going to bamboozle people who've never watched the TV show. Because in all honesty, the viewership on the Mandalorian TV show isn't massively, monstrously big. It's healthy, clearly. It's not like plenty of other shows that do have massive followings on television. It's part of the Star Wars broader ecosystem. And so when you transfer that to the cinema, that's going to work out great. I also think that having the option, as you just alluded to, and I've not heard anything anywhere, you know, this might be the last Mandalorian thing. He might turn up as a character in other films and projects. But let's say they do a season 4 of The Mandalorian. And why wouldn't they? You know, if this goes out and bangs out a 200 million opening weekend and picks up 600 or 700 million worldwide, I think everybody would be pleased with that, given that it's a spin-off from a TV show. It's not a saga episode. It's not a Star Wars story like Rogue One and Solo. It's a different thing altogether. It would feel like an unexpected big hit if you got those kind of numbers in the best sense. Yeah. So if you could take that back to television, if you could persuade, let's say, Pedro Pascal to do more for television, or Jon Favreau has kind of loosely alluded to, this is the culmination of everything we've done so far. It kind of says I'm leaving the Star Wars train after this without actually saying it overtly, because why would he say that before a press tour? But that's the way it reads to me. If they do want to do more, Filoni's the top dog now at Lucasfilm. That has got to give a little bit more scope, you would think, to certain elements.
Yeah.
It's what you said. Why give away that plot line when you know you've got an Ahsoka season 2, when you could use that really healthily and have the ammo of the Mandalorian and Grogu movie? It's like The Simpsons going back to television after the Simpsons movie did 500 million 20 years ago.
Well, exactly. You're using the momentum of like a big screen, a box office smash. It kind of helps to promote itself, and doesn't it? I feel this film will bring a lot of people back to the cinema. I think either just because of the fact that it's Star Wars, but it's easy Star Wars as well.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the Acolyte for IMAX. This is the Mandalorian for IMAX, but it's a lot more accessible. It's more of your kind of like your dessert Star Wars than your Andor meat and potatoes.
That's very good. And I'm also very hungry now you said that. I just we've seen in the last week or so, certainly the last 10 days, the marketing push has really started. Yeah. Like crazy. We're seeing loads of food promos, loads of popcorn buckets. We're seeing international stuff as well, which is really refreshing.
I don't think there's ever been a film with so many popcorn buckets, because it's not only the cinemas doing popcorn buckets, they're releasing standalone popcorn buckets that you can get at Walmart's and other places. So it's just like you're going to be just chasing down Walmart's popcorn buckets on eBay in like June or July when they're like $200 because you can't get one.
We've had this conversation for a little while on the show, knowing that this has been coming. When are they going to push the button on the marketing?
Yeah, that's the thing. Everybody's been, they're not promoting this film. Why aren't they promoting this film? Do we not have any confidence? And we've probably said that. I know I'd said before that I think it's going to be a shorter kind of period of time. But that's because there's so many different media channels where people get their promotion from, and that all costs. So if you're trying to now work in a film industry whereby we're trying to save costs, and we know that The Mandalorian is a cheaper production budget than, say, Andor or any of the sequel trilogy films, that also has to include the marketing. So if you hit everything really hard and fast, this is kind of the genius, I think, of Disney really taking the May the 4th holiday, as it were, by the horns when they acquired Lucasfilm and really running with it, is that it's then a built-in advertisement for the franchise and for obviously your upcoming film or TV series. And if they can start to work with more synergy for this film and obviously for Starfighter and into the future, it's going to work. And I think it will just help everybody understand how the marketing of these films is going to work from now on.
Hi, this is Julie Dolan, the voice of Princess Leia, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks. It's your only hope.
16th of May, if you want to see Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano beat the living hell out of each other, then maybe you want to be tuning into Netflix. And ahead of that, to hype the fight, Gina turned up on Ariel Helwani's podcast and discussed the fight with Ronda Rousey, cancel culture, and she really interestingly mentioned the potential healing of the rift between herself and Disney, to the point that she claims to have had conversations with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. So Gina said, I've already had a conversation with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. Really lovely. After we settled the lawsuit, we got on a Zoom call. It was really nice. Dave Filoni is taking over as CEO of Star Wars, and it's like we didn't even miss a beat. Jon Favreau was really funny. He got on the Zoom and was like, so where did we leave off? We hadn't spoken for a while. So that's all she says on the matter. Obviously, she's kind of got to keep her counsel, but she is just putting it out there that there have been discussions between herself and obviously with Filoni now as the top guy at Lucasfilm. What do you make of that? I mean, it's an interesting thing to put out. It's smart because she's out there in the ether with the fight coming up with Rousey, which is going to get stupid numbers. You just know it. And Mandalorian and Grogu's on its way. All things being equal, as these things hadn't happened, where are we looking at? 5 years ago since all this happened, that she would have probably been involved in this project. And the whole world of Star Wars would be different because we would have had Rangers of the New Republic, which would have featured Mando, but she'd have probably led it if we think it had gone the way we think it might have gone. What do you make of the comments?
Good. Positive. Is that the kind of comment that you put out because you've just been invited to the Mando and Grogu premiere? You know. Yeah. And you don't necessarily want to take the spotlight away from the film by suddenly rocking up. I, like a lot of people, have been doing a rewatch of The Mandalorian recently to get me back into like the Mando headspace. And, you know, in season 2, there's such good chemistry on screen with her and Din Djarin and everybody. Yeah, you do go, oh, isn't it a shame that all we get in season 3 is that one throwaway comment from Grief Karga just to kind of explain away the fact that she's been snapped up by the New Republic. The door is still open. You know, I would love to see season 4 with Gina Carano back in it. I think that would be fantastic. I'm sure some people will be annoyed about it, but I think what's there to lose? The lawsuit's done now. We can all move on.
Isn't it funny, though, that we've not really, to my recollection, talked about season 4, other than that, you know, a while ago, Favreau, off the record, sort of said, me and a couple of other guys were there. He said, yeah, season 4 was written, but it wasn't on record. Yeah. We couldn't report it on Fantha because it was hearsay. Now he's actually put it out there and we can sort of say, oh, well, great. But the point being is that we've talked about the fact that there were scripts for season 4. And now we know that Mandalorian and Grogu isn't season 4, so they still exist. Obviously, other things have changed in and around it, not least of which Carl Weathers not being around anymore, bless him, and just other things that have changed in and around, you know, the Star Wars world. But here we are now with Gina Carano coming back onto the radar very publicly because of the fight. You know, good luck to her. But also in relation to that conversation with Favreau and Filoni, who, it must be said, haven't made mention of this yet themselves. No. So let's hope that there is some sort of word or corroboration of a conversation. But Cara Dune didn't die. She wasn't killed off screen. She still exists in the Star Wars world. She did get that mention you just mentioned. And so she's still out there. So it would be, in terms of the story of Star Wars, in terms of the storyline, the plots and everything else, she was so integral, as you say, to seasons 1 and 2, the character. And season 3 was all right, but it wasn't seasons 1 and 2, let's be honest. It'd be very interesting to see if they could work something, if they could make something happen. And I'm curious what you think the reaction by the fandom would be if she did.
I think everybody was a little bit shocked when she was fired. You know, we walked the news line and we didn't really editorialize it or give our opinions on it.
No, we didn't.
But, I mean, it's not like she really had any negative stuff to do with the fan base. So, therefore, I don't think there's anybody, I think most people anyway, was a bit bummed by it. And actually, just to kind of circle this back, I was just wondering, because of the fact that he's still got season 4 ready to rock, however it is, and whether or not he had to go back, as you say, and maybe make some adjustments because of Carl Weathers passing away. But also, does that then mean, we know that there hasn't been any confirmation that it was going to be a season 4. But does that kind of make this Mando and Grogu film slightly less consequential? Is this now we're going to go into it thinking this is more of a safer film, and we know that everybody's going to come out fairly okay because of the fact that there is a potential for season 4? Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yeah. A couple of things on that. I think the fact that we've got a Mando and Grogu film, I feel like they wanted to do the Rey thing and they wanted to do other films and they could never quite land them and make them work. And so having a property like Mandalorian and Grogu, when you can take those characters and pull them out of that television storyline, if you like, and tell a story on the big screen that's associated with it, but maybe not completely knotted into that deep lore that we've built up over the 3 seasons, and Book of Boba, don't forget, and peripherally Skeleton Crew and Ahsoka. But to do that feels like a safer bet if you want to put something on the big screen. So to be able to go to Favreau and say, do you want to direct a Star Wars film? Yes, please, boss. The same for Pedro. Do you want to be the lead of a Star Wars film on the big screen? Yes, please. I grew up loving Star Wars. I even cried about it at CCXP in Mexico over the weekend. Great, let's do that. And so there's things like that that feel like easy wins. ILM are going to be all over that. Everybody's going to be all over that.
Yeah, totally.
But in terms of what you say, they would probably have to do a bit of reworking on season 4 because certainly when season 3 came out, and I did the interview on Making Tracks with Favreau, Carl Weathers was still around. So they'd have had to rejig that to a degree. So there's always going to be rejig elements. But I think to your point, I'm not expecting them to kill the Mandalorian off or Grogu not to make it, even though you have got to kind of think, where was Grogu during the sequel trilogy? Yeah, there's all these questions that you could ask if you wanted to ask, even though it's a monstrously big galaxy. And now we have more than one galaxy. He could be in the other galaxy when that's all handy for a week. So there's things you could look at there. I think that the options are pretty broad, in terms of storytelling. From what I'm expecting from, for example, Mando and Grogu, I'm just expecting a great action. I'm expecting all the great action spots from Raiders. That's what I'm expecting. I've seen enough of the clips and enough of the little teasers that I'm just getting the sense that this is a romp. And now 100%. Gina Carano's come back on the scene to sort of make it known that, well, no hard feelings for my part. I'm taking calls from Favreau and Filoni. So she's putting it out there that I'm willing to come back. So if I never come back, it's not because I don't want to come back. I'd love to come back. She's been very savvy in that sense. But speaking now in 2026, I'd love to see her come back as Cara Dune because I think the character had so much she could do with it. And especially now we know she was part of the New Republic, there's another avenue, and another TV spin-off if you want to do it.
If they ask her back, does that mean that for the Rangers of the New Republic series is potentially back on the table? I guess it does. Unless, of course, they kind of go, well, let's put you into the Grief Karga role. Maybe she ends up running Navarro or something.
But you think if they did bring her back, let's spitball this one now.
Yeah, go on.
They have the conversation. She doesn't reveal it in a phone call about an MMA fight she's having on Netflix next month. It's too big of a deal. It's the sort of thing you'd reveal on May the 4th or at Celebration or somewhere like that. But let's say they've gone, right, bury the hatchet, everything's done, no hard feelings, it's done, we want to bring you back in. And she's like, right.
Yeah.
What if they go back and have another look at a Rangers of the New Republic project and you don't get a season 4 of The Mandalorian? But what you do get is something that the Disney marketeers and Lucasfilm would love. We're going to do Rangers of the New Republic and we're going to bring Cobb Vanth back and we're going to bring Carson Tavor back. We're going to bring Miggs Mayfeld back. You've already got the Magnificent Seven if you want them. And Mando would be in that. And he becomes a part of that show. And so you still got Mando and Grogu because there's 2 right there. And they're all just going around the galaxy doing whatever they're doing on missions for the New Republic. Every now and again, unless they bumper off with the film, you get Sigourney Weaver at the desk handing out the missions. It kind of writes itself if they want to go down that avenue.
It kind of does, doesn't it? It seems simple, as you quite nicely put it. What's more exciting, a 4th season of a existing show or a new show, which is bringing in new characters and new situations? That makes it very interesting. And then also, you can still have your Mandalorian show as well. You would kind of imagine that Din would drop in and out, there for the pilot, and then maybe there for a couple of episodes, which is cool because then it makes a different dynamic. Because that's the observation with season 3. After the first couple of episodes, it feels very much like the Bo-Katan show. She is the Mandalorian in this season, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think when we talked about it at the time for Reaction Chat, the focus is being pulled. So like Carson Tavor's coming in and we've seen a little bit of him, and then we have those episodes with Dr. Pershing on Coruscant and that. So it's all these things where it's not just like Adventure of the Week, like they were starting to build towards a more cohesive storyline. You could have Mando in it without pulling focus in the same way as maybe if it was somebody else. So very exciting as well, because there's plenty of Imperials around the galaxy we need mopping up. We need a task force to go and do it.
Hi, I'm Duncan Poe and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
It's guest time here on Making Tracks, and today Paul Naylor catches up with Dermot Crowley. This was back in November 2025 at Smugglers in Surrey. Great event. We've had loads of interviews from that show. We've still got a couple to go. So here is Paul Naylor and Dermot Crowley, General Madine from Return of the Jedi, talking here on Making Tracks.
So I'm with Dermot Crowley, who famously, for Star Wars fans, played General Madine in Return of the Jedi. Hello, Dermot.
Hello.
You having a good day?
I'm having a very good day indeed.
It's a really nice one, isn't it?
It's a lovely, friendly, fantastic.
Yeah, because I've spoken to you before at Star Wars Fan Fun Day. Echo Base in Redditch. Yes, I've spoken.
I love Echo Base.
It's great, isn't it?
It's just fantastic.
Well, you have got quite some following amongst the Echo Base
I have
fraternity.
Indeed. And I'm very dear to, they're dear to my heart.
I bet they are. I've seen T-shirts with your face on that are very sort of Andy Warhol inspired. And
that is so brilliant.
Yeah.
That's really fantastic.
And rather famously, I believe the beard of General Madine wasn't your own, shall we say?
Clearly not. No.
How did that happen?
The beard of General Madine has followed me around for 45 years. Basically, I turned up on the first morning of shooting, and the makeup lady said, "Oh, by the way, Dermot, we have a beard for you," and. I said, no. I said, I don't want a beard. And I said, no, you have to have a beard. So I said, look, I'm allergic to spirit gum. I hate everything stuck in my face. I really don't want to wear this. And about 5 or 10 minutes later, Richard Marquand, God rest his noble soul, he came in and he said, Dermot, do me a favour, wear the bloody beard. So what can you do? The director tells you to wear the beard. So I wore it. And that was that. However, about 9 months later, an actor friend of mine rang me up and he said, Dermot, he said, there's a doll of you in Hamleys.
Yes.
We didn't call them action figures. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, there's a doll of you in Hamleys.
It would be this one here.
It would be that very one.
One from the first 17 of the Return of the Jedi figures. And that, weirdly, was the first Return of the Jedi figure I had. I'd got the Star Wars and Empire ones. And I saw that in my local toy shop. I thought, who's this?
Well, exactly.
So your friend had seen this.
Your friend had seen it, so I took myself off to Hamleys, and sure enough, there was my action figure with my bearded face on a card.
Yeah.
And I then realised that in actual fact, the action figure was made before the actor, i.e. me, was cast. So they had to have a beard on that morning. It was crucial. But anyway,
that's genius.
Makes a good story.
I didn't realise. I never realised that. That's brilliant.
That's
brilliant.
true. Yeah.
What do you remember of the actual filming of those scenes? Because would it be a few weeks' work? Or maybe?
Oh no, far from it. Yeah. I mean, it was, I think, 2-3 days at the most.
Yeah.
But that particular set that we were on was so astonishing. I mean, it was. I believe it cost £250,000 in 1982. Now, £250,000 is still a large amount of money, but in 1982, it was extraordinary and it was spectacular.
Yeah.
And it was scary. I mean, Caroline Blakeston, the wonderful Caroline Blakeston, and I, we were kind of essentially theatre actors, and we walked onto this vast set with these very big stars at the time, Carrie and Harrison Ford, and Mark Hamill, who were delightful. Although I was more in awe when I met Carrie in the canteen, because she was with her boyfriend at the time. And I was such a huge fan of Simon and Garfunkel, and it was Mr. Simon himself. I mean, I began to hyperventilate with
Did you get to have
I got to say hello to him. Yes. I mean, Paul Simon was just a genius.
Legends.
Totally. Yeah.
So we had a lovely family pop over just a moment ago, and they got a Jonathan Creek book. So you obviously appeared in that, and they were thrilled to have you add an autograph to their book. So, of all the things that you've done beyond Return of the Jedi, is there anything that stands out as like a real either pivotal moment to you or something that you really enjoyed?
Well, I suppose I've been doing Luther for a very long time now, since 2009 for the BBC.
Which is incredible.
And every single episode written by the wonderful Neil Cross. And Idris is the man himself and has become a worldwide star since we started it.
Please tell me he's as nice as I hope he is.
He is as nice as you hope he is, yes. So we then did Luther the Fallen Son for Netflix, which went straight to #1 in the world, apparently, on its release. And so I can announce a second one very shortly for Netflix, which is great. So,
and you'll be in that one as well, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
But my other sort of favourite is the Armando Iannucci film Death of Stalin. Which is a wonderful, wonderful film.
Very witty.
Very witty, sharp, scary, and full of black humour.
Had you done much work prior to Return of the Jedi?
I was a jobbing actor. I mean, mainly theatre. I had spent 3 years at the National Theatre in London. And I'd worked in rep in Sheffield and Bristol Vic and all of that. But kind of sort of cracking into films was very exciting at the time. For a young actor, it was just wonderful.
And you were familiar with Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, were you, at the time?
I was familiar, but not that familiar. I hadn't seen them. But it was a kind of a wonderful time for actors in London in the early 80s, because that same year I did Octopussy, so I was in the Bond and the Star Wars, as
two big franchises straight away.
So it was great.
Well, it's been brilliant chatting with you, and I hope the career continues to develop and get even better.
Thank you so much.
Calm down.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
It's been a staple of the UK summer convention calendar for many, many years. But this year in 2026, there will not be London Film and Comic Con. The event has been cancelled. Showmasters announced that last week. The show will be back on the 14th to the 15th of August 2027. But as for this year, no LFCC. Quite a surprise. We've had good times at the show over the years, in the Star Wars Zone specifically. Obviously, with your role in the Rebel Legion, it's been a staple for yourself. What do you make of this? It's a big, big show not to happen. It's the UK equivalent of New York Comic Con not happening. So what do you make of this announcement?
It's a real shame, but I do feel for them because at the moment, we're having a conversation with a friend about the prices of airline tickets to LA next year. With the tickets going on sale for Celebration on May the 6th, everybody's looking at airline prices, and economy's not cheap. The cheapest, I think, is 500 or 600 quid per leg, and we're going up from there. So it is a shame. We've had some fantastic times on the Star Wars Zone. There are so many other summer conventions happening that on some level, and this is a commentary on the fact there are so many conventions, not having one on one weekend isn't the end of the world for the convention scene in the UK for this year. It'll be interesting to see if a similar kind of thing affects other conventions, because Showmasters is a big convention. They have a lot of guests. Now, that's great. But if you're a smaller convention and you want to maybe only have one or two guests from the US, but those prices still price you out, then that's going to obviously have a knock-on effect there as well. So we could see actually other conventions maybe having to pivot a little bit over the summer to readdress how they're going to cover these costs.
That's a really fair point, actually. I mean, obviously a lot of discourse online about this happening because it is such a big and high-profile show. And as we say, it's one that Fantha's been involved with quite deeply over a number of years, thanks to Dave Tree running the Star Wars Zone, which hasn't happened for a couple of years, which has been massively missed. But,
yes, massively.
There's been a lot of work going on at Olympia. They've had to sort of pivot a little bit to make the events happen. They have had issues with their spring shows, but I don't think anybody ever expected that there would be a summer show that didn't happen.
Totally right. It's difficult timing, isn't it, if you're a convention organizer? If you announce you've got somebody signing at your event too early, and they then get offered a role in a film or something, they're likely to turn down or cancel your appearance and then obviously do the film. If you leave it too late, you're kind of stuffed if you then don't have any fallbacks to fill the space. But you would think there's plenty of UK actors and people who could sign or would sign, and people would go along and happily, meet them.
Obviously, here in the UK, we've got Pinewood, we've got Shepperton, we've got Shinfield, we've got Elstree, we've got lots of locations filming all the time and actors in the country. It all depends on scheduling. It all depends on if they're available on that particular weekend. So that's not necessarily the answer to everything. But as you say, there are plenty of other conventions happening over the summer. I mean, we've got Portsmouth Comic Con coming up in May. We've got May the 4th coming up with Star Wars Fan Fun Day. MCM London Comic Con is running over the 22nd to the 24th of May. Galaxy Palooza on the 6th of June. Hopefully, I'll see you at Star Fury Invasion in June, 26th to the 28th.
I have my tickets. I've already bought them. Yeah.
Wonderful. So we'll do another walk around episode. Same weekend as the first Force Fest, which is happening that weekend. We've got Midlands Comic Con on the 11th to the 12th of July, 1st of August. We've got Festival of the Force coming back. I am the stage host once again. Can't wait for that one. Yeah. And there's loads of other things happening across the UK. But the very important point you just made is right there. They're not all bringing in high-profile guests to the quality and caliber that LFCC have over the years that they would expect to present to the fans. So it is a bit of a quandary. Like you say, it's a tricky time for conventions right now.
Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith, a Star Wars fan, Fantha Tracks fan.
Now, this isn't new news. This news was actually first posted 6 years ago on the Walt Disney World Magic website. But it's come up again because the former Walt Disney World VP, Dan Cockrell, has been speaking. And he did mention that the decision for Galaxy's Edge to be the new world of Batuu rather than the familiar place of Mos Eisley on Tatooine came directly from Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger. That decision was made a decade ago. Here's what Cockrell says. We're going to call one day. They said, well, we've got some news for you. And the Imagineering guys, they've heard this line many, many times during their careers, and I'd never been through this. They said, well, yesterday Bob Iger met with Kathleen Kennedy and they had a conversation, they had a meeting, and Kathleen Kennedy, her point of view was, there are way more Disney Star Wars stories ahead of us than behind us. So we really should think about, do we want to build a Tatooine and build what all the 50-somethings remember Star Wars is, or do we want to build something else which is going to appeal to all the upcoming generations who are going to know the new stories? Now, as we look back in 2026, we look back in 2026, and we might, because the 50th is racing up on us, and I'm a 50-something, and you're getting there.
Slowly.
Break it to you, yeah. The decision not to build Galaxy's Edge of Tatooine may seem crazy, but framing it the way that Kathleen did a decade plus ago, that we've got way more ahead of us than we've got behind us, you can actually stand behind that decision, can't you?
I think so. I think it makes a lot of sense. However, the problem is that we haven't been to Batuu, other than in the books and the comics. Other than maybe a couple of small TV spots for some American Idol or something like that. It's not like they've used the planet at all.
Black Spire gets a name second solo.
Exactly, Black Spire. There's probably too many names for it because you've got Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, then you've got Black Spire Outpost, and you've got Batuu. Yes, for free are all kind of interchangeable, but it kind of means which one do people really know? Well, most people ask me, have you been to Galaxy's Edge? Those are probably non-Star Wars people. The fans are more likely to say Batuu. I don't think I've ever heard anybody mention Black Spire since I read that book or seen Solo. So yeah, I kind of get it. I've completed Outlaws. I've still got the DLC stuff to do. I've still got stuff to do with Hondo and Jabba and that. But I've done the main game, thoroughly enjoyed it. Maybe it's nostalgia, not for returning back to Tatooine because it's going back to Phantom Menace and A New Hope. I get nostalgia feel, so returning to Tatooine because of the fact that I played it in the Old Republic and spent a lot of time, way too much time there in Star Wars Galaxies. Part of my Mandalorian rewatch, I watched 3 episodes of Book of Boba Fett. So basically, I kind of jumped in to the point where we spin off to see Mando. So was that episode 5, 6, 7? I think
5, 6, 7, yeah.
And then obviously you go back to Tatooine and you're looking around and you go, it's nice to be back in Tatooine, but actually visually, it's not the most exciting. There's a lot of, I'm not even saying the street environment is very plain and basic. And I think, if you were to do Tatooine, what do they do? Were they thinking, do you do Mos Eisley? We'll just create a Mos Pelgo and create a new town.
That's a great point, and it's a brilliant point actually about Batuu, which I think a lot of people probably haven't considered. If you introduce Batuu as a location like they did, and Kennedy absolutely lays it out perfectly, and you can stand behind that logic, but where has Batu been in Star Wars television storytelling? It's been non-existent pretty much. Another point is, are you really going to build a Galaxy's Edge and have it set on Mos Espa or Mos Eisley? Probably. And from a little locales, it would be amazing. You know, there's Falcon in Docking Bay 94, there's the Cantina, which is what Ogres is. But then are you really going to have sand everywhere? Because you'd have to if you're on Tatooine. Are you really going to want to lay down tons and tons of sand, which would get kicked around constantly and kicked into the shops? On one hand, I see the logic of doing Tatooine. On another hand, I'm thinking, would Mos Eisley really be the best place to do it? There's that very tangible, practical element that if you didn't have the sand, people would be, where's the sand? But then if you had sand, people would be going, bloody sand. You know,
it gets everywhere.
Exactly. It's well, you'd hear that more than you'd hear Man of the Force be with you, wouldn't it? It'd be just a real catch-22. So I think the logic of what Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger said, let's make this a new place. Let's make this something unique and original. Like you're saying, there's been plenty, you know, the games are set there. Obviously, the Star Cruiser, they knew they were doing that. And that was, took an excursion to Batu. All the books and the comics, the Galaxy's Edge comics that have come out. We've got one on the go right now that's just started from Marvel. So all of that makes sense. I just think now the counter argument for me would be, you've got two parks. Why did you build two parks identical? Yeah. Now they're sort of delineating a little bit. They're changing the timeline rather than the location. And that's a good start. And they're never going to redress or strip down or rebuild Galaxy. It's too big. But they did have an opportunity to have two parks with individual experiences.
Out of all the environments, Tatooine is probably the one that is most synonymous with the saga. The only one that I think might be of interest would be Naboo. That's probably the only one. But maybe it's something I can get ChatGPT to do over dinner. It's like compile the planets and their number of appearances over all the franchises. I mean, Tatooine's going to come back on top by a mile. But then I'd be interested to see what the second or third one is. But because, especially in the OT and prequel era, these planets were so one environment, it does make it very difficult to then be able to support that environment. So it comes back to probably the better suggestion from Kathleen Kennedy is to go, well, just make something that it can be kind of temperate or whatever and make it generic, but it's quintessentially enough Star Wars and it's, you know, what you put in it, then actually the environment kind of becomes less important. But I think, if you were to start doing Tatooine or another planet, all your theming's got to be really on point. But then, like, actually, again, you go to Warriors Cantina, Mos Eisley Cantina, Mos Junk Shop instead of Doc Ondars. So there was probably enough scope.
Hello, I'm Dennis Lawson, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
So, last episode we had a number of listeners' questions, and this episode we've got even more. Are you sitting comfortably, Mark?
No, that's because I'm perched over the edge of a Sarlacc pit.
Not good. Okay, so the question is from Donna Gilly. Donna's question is, it was wonderful having you all at Ice Planet Hoth in Finse, Norway. So last year, just to explain, a bunch of Fanthas went out to Finse to where they filmed Empire Strikes Back. Second time we've been, had an amazing time. We're going to go again in 2029 for the 50th anniversary of the filming of The Empire Strikes Back. But her question is there another filming location you've not been to that you would like to go to? So I'll kick off with you, Mark. Is there a Star Wars filming location you would love to go to?
Death Valley, the most extreme opposite to Finse.
That's a good choice. I've got to look at me and Matt did it after Anaheim. There's Mando locations there. There's A New Hope locations there. There's Jedi locations there. So there's lots of stuff around. And it's hot as hell. And it is ridiculously big and hugely impressive. So, that's a great choice. For me, it would be what we're doing. There's a bunch of us doing Tunisia in November. You know, that's one that we've looked forward to for a long, long time. For me, right now, it would be the California Redwoods.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, at least that's a little bit more comfortable. And they do a great festival, don't they? They do the Forest Moon over Andor festival.
Yes, they do.
That might be something we might need to look into. See what we can get out there.
2032, let's do that one for the 50th anniversary of Film and Jedi.
Yep, I'll put it in my diary right now.
There you go. So thank you, Donna. So Death Valley and the Redwoods, the California Redwoods. And our next question, Mark Spriggs. What is your grail event that hasn't happened to you yet in Star Wars? So something that you would love to happen that hasn't happened to you yet.
It's just get out to America for a celebration. It's not a huge ask, but it's an ask. That's all I want to do.
I got to say, I can't wait for you to be in the States when we're both there for a celebration, because I love going over there because the people are so cool and they know Fantha, and and it's nice to be acknowledged and recognised for the stuff that we do. But if you and me went out there, mate, it'll be like Beatlemania. If we get chosen for the podcast stage, no guarantee. But if we did, then packed room for you, matey. For me, it would be, I've always wanted to get on a film set, a Star Wars film set. I've never quite managed that. So that's definitely one thing. And getting on a book project would be huge for me. And I've been trying for years and years, and it's never quite landed. So that's another thing. And shaking George Lucas's hand. Just shake his hand and just so he knows I'm grateful. That would be the one for me. Just being on a Star Wars film set, not being in Star, no expectations of being in anything or on screen or anything. Just to be there, just to witness, just to when I go and see the film, I watched them film that. I was there when they filmed that. So that would be very special indeed.
Okay, well, look, thank you very much for those fun little questions. Do like answering fun little questions, especially ones that don't necessarily have to think too long or too hard about, especially at our old age. Anyhow, if you'd like to get in touch, we would love to hear from you. And the only way to do it is by listening to this rather long and lengthy instructions.
Here's how you can get in touch if you want to get in touch, and please send in more listeners' questions.
Email radio@fanthatracks.com. Head to links.fanthatracks.com for links to our social media feeds, Fantha Tracks TV and Fantha Tracks Radio. Thanks to James Semple for the Fantha Tracks intro, Blues Harvest for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. New episodes drop Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 o'clock UK time. Our weekly news show, Good Morning Tatooine, goes live Sundays at 9 o'clock UK time on Facebook and YouTube. And remember, Fantha Tracks is absolutely free, so it costs nothing to stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news.
And that's me done for this episode, mate.
Wicked. It's going to be fun trying to fit all the May the 4th stuff in next week. And the final 2 episodes of Maul and a record. It is possible. Keep an eye on your feeds. So all that is left for me to say is thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And as always, may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's the Fantha from Down Under.